Volume 2, Chapter 171, 25th of May, 1945. The Sermon of the Mount, the Beatitudes, Part 2. The Sermon of the Mount continues. It is the same place and the same time. The crowd is larger. In a corner, near a path, there is a Roman, who seems anxious to hear, but does not want to upset the crowd. I recognize him from his short tunic and the different style of his mantle. Stephen and Hermas are still there. Jesus walks slowly to his place and resumes speaking. What I told you yesterday must not cause you to think that I have come to abolish the law. No. But since I am the man, and I understand the weakness of man, I wanted to encourage you to comply with it, turning your spiritual eyes not to the dark abyss, but to the bright sublimity. Because if the fear of punishment can hold you back 3 times out of 10, the certainty of a reward will urge you 7 times out of 10. Trust is therefore more efficacious than fear. And I want you to be fully and firmly confident, so that you accomplish not 7 parts of good out of 10, but 10 out of 10, and thus gain the most holy prize of heaven. I will not change 1 iota of the law. And who gave it amongst the peals of thunder on Sinai? The Most High. Who is the Most High? God, one and trine. Where did he take it from? From his thought. How did he give it? By his word. Why did he give it? Out of his love. You can thus see that the Trinity was present. And the Word, obedient as ever to the thought and love, spoke on behalf of the thought and love. Could I give myself the lie? No, I could not. But since I can do everything, I can complete the law, make it divinely complete, not what man did throughout centuries, as they did not make it complete, but incomprehensible and impossible to be fulfilled. In fact, they superimposed precepts and laws taken from their own thoughts, according to their own gain, and they thus lapidated and suffocated, sterilized and buried the most holy law given by God. Can a tree survive if it is continuously struck by avalanches, rubble, and floods? No, it will die. The law dies in many hearts, suffocated by the avalanches of too many superstructures. I have come to remove them all, and after unearthing and reviving the law, I will make it no longer a law, but a queen. Queens promulgate laws. The laws are the work of queens, but they are not above queens. I instead make the law a queen. I complete it. I crown it, putting on its top the wreath of the evangelic counsels. Before it was order. Now it is more than order. Before it was a necessary thing. Now it is more than the necessary thing. Now it is perfection. Who weds it, as I present you with it, becomes immediately a king, because he has reached perfection, because he has been not only obedient, but also heroic, that is, holy, as holiness is a sum of virtues carried to the greatest height attainable by a creature, heroically loved and practiced through a complete detachment from every human desire and consideration. I could say that he is a saint, whom love and desire prevent from seeing everything but God. As his attention is not distracted by inferior sights, his eyes and heart are fixed on the most holy brightness, which is God, and in which, since everything is in God, he can see his distressed brothers stretching out their hands suppliantly. And without taking his eyes away from God, the saint devotes himself to his suppliant brothers. Against the flesh, against wealth, against comforts, he pursues his ideal, to serve, Is a saint poor or disabled? No, he is not. He has succeeded in achieving true wisdom and wealth. He therefore possesses everything. And he never tires because, while it is true that he is always active, it is also true that he is continuously nourished. And while he understands the sorrows of the world, he feeds on the delights of heaven. He is nourished by God and delights in God. He is a creature who has understood the meaning of life. As you can see, I neither change nor mutilate the law, neither do I corrupt it by superimposing human fomenting theories. I complete it. The law is what it is and shall be such until the last day. Not one word will be changed. Not one precept will be abolished. It is crowned with perfection. To reach salvation, it is sufficient to accept it as it was given. To obtain immediate union with God, it is necessary to live it according to my advice. But, since heroes are an exception, I will speak to common souls, to the mass of souls, so that no one may say that I have made what is necessary unknown, in order to reach perfection. But of everything I tell you, remember this. He who takes the liberty of infringing one of the least of these commandments will be considered one of the least in the kingdom of heaven. And he who will induce others to infringe them will be considered one of the least both with regard to himself and to those whom he led to the infringement. He, instead, who through his life and deeds, rather than by words, has convinced others to abide by the law, will be great in the kingdom of heaven, and his greatness will be increased by each of those whom he has led to obey and thus sanctify themselves. I know that what I am about to say will taste bitter to many tongues. But I cannot tell lies, even if the truth I am about to speak will procure me many enemies. I solemnly tell you that unless you create anew your justice, detaching it completely from the poor and unfairly defined justice which the Pharisees and scribes have taught you, unless you are really more just than the Pharisees and scribes, who think they are just because they increase the number of formulae without any substantial change of their spirits, you shall not enter the kingdom of heaven. Beware of false prophets and erring doctors. They come to you clad as lambs, and they are rapacious wolves. They come clad with holiness, and they deride God. They say they love the truth, and they feed on falsehood. Study them before following them. Man has a tongue, and he speaks with it. He has eyes, and he sees with them. He has hands, and makes signs with them. But he has something else which is a more truthful witness to his real being, his deeds. And what are two hands joined in prayer, if a man is a thief and fornicator? And what are two eyes, which, pretending to be inspired, roll in all directions, if after the farce they greedily stare at a woman or an enemy, out of lust or for murder? And what is a tongue expert in whistling a false song of praise and in seducing by means of honeyed words, if behind your back it calumniates you and is capable of swearing falsely, if only it could pass you off as a mean fellow? What is a tongue that says long hypocritical prayers and is then quick in killing the reputation of a neighbor or seducing his good faith? It is disgusting. And disgusting are untruthful hands and eyes. But the deeds of man, the true deeds, that is, his behavior at home, in business, towards his neighbor and servants, are the things that testify, this man is a servant of the Lord. Because holy deeds are the fruit of true religion. A good tree does not bear bad fruit, and a bad tree does not bear good fruit. Will these thorny bushes ever be able to give you tasty grapes? And those, even more stinging thistles, will they ever be able to mature sweet figs for you? No, they will not. In actual fact, you will be able to pick only a few sour blackberries from the former, and uneatable fruits will come from the latter, which, although flowers, are still thorny. The man who is not just will be able to command respect by his appearance, and only by it. Also, the downy thistle looks like a tuft of thin silvery threads adorned with diamonds by the dew. But if inadvertently you touch it, you find out that it is not a tuft, but a bundle of thorns, painful to man, harmful to sheep, so that shepherds uproot them from their pastures and burn them on the fire they light at night, so that not even the seed may be spread. A just and provident step. I do not say to you, kill the false prophets and hypocritical believers. Nay, I say to you, leave the task to God. But I say to you, be careful, keep away from them, that you may not be poisoned by their juices. I told you yesterday how God is to be loved. I will insist on how our neighbor is to be loved. Once it was said, you shall love your friend and hate your enemy. No, not so. That was all right for the times when man did not have the comfort of God's smile. But now new times have come, when God has loved man so much as to send his word to redeem him. Now the word is speaking, and it is already an effusion of grace. Later, the word will consummate the sacrifice of peace and redemption, and there will not only be an effusion of grace, but grace will be given to every soul believing in Christ. It is therefore necessary to elevate the love of our neighbor to a perfection that unifies friend and enemy. Have you been slandered? Love and forgive. Have you been struck? Love and offer the other cheek to him who smacked you, considering that it is better that he gives vent to his wrath on you, who can put up with it, rather than on somebody else who would take vengeance for the insult. Have you been robbed? Do not think, this neighbor of mine is greedy, but charitably say, this poor brother of mine is needy, and give him also your tunic, if he has stolen your mantle. You will make it impossible for him to steal twice, because he will have no need to rob another person of his tunic. You may say, it may be a vice and not a need. Well, give just the same. God will reward you for it, and the wicked man will pay for it. And this should remind you of what I told you yesterday on lowliness. When he sees how he has been dealt with, his vice will drop from his heart, and the sinner will redeem himself, making amends for the theft by handing back what he had stolen. Be generous towards those who, being more honest, ask you for what they need, instead of robbing you. If the rich were really poor in spirit, as I explained yesterday, there would be no painful social inequalities, the cause of so many human and superhuman calamities. Always consider, if I were in need, how would I feel if I were denied help? And act according to the reply of your ego. Do to others what you would have liked done to yourself, and do not do to others what you would not like done to yourself. The old saying, eye for eye, tooth for tooth, which is not one of the 10 Commandments, but was added because man, devoid of grace, is such a beast that he only understands vengeance. The old saying has been cancelled. It has indeed been cancelled by the new word. Love him who hates you. Pray for him who persecutes you. Justify him who slanders you. Bless him who curses you. Help the one who harms you. Be pacific with quarrelsome people. Be compliant with bothersome persons. Willingly help those who have recourse to you without practicing usury. Do not criticize. Do not judge. You do not know the particular reason for man's actions. Be generous and merciful in all kinds of assistance. The more you give, the more you will be given, and a full pressed down measure will be poured by God onto the lap of him who has been generous. God will not give you only according to what you have given, but he will give you much more. Endeavor to love and be loved. Quarrels are more costly than friendly settlements, and a good grace is like honey, the flavor of which lasts for a long time on one's tongue. Love, love. Love friends and enemies, to be like your Father, who allows rain to fall on the good and the wicked, and lets the sun shine on the just and the unjust, and will grant eternal sunshine and dew, and hellish fire and hail, when the good will be chosen, like selected ears of corn, amongst the sheaves of the harvest. It is not enough to love those who love you, and from whom you expect reciprocation. That is no merit. It is a joy, and also naturally honest men can do it. Also the publicans and the Gentiles do it. But you must love according to God, and out of respect for God, who is the Creator, also of those who are your enemies, or are not very fond of you. I want the perfection of love in you, and I therefore say, be perfect as your Father, who is in heaven, is perfect. So great is the precept of love for your neighbor, the perfecting of the precept of love for your neighbor, that I no longer say, as it was said, do not kill, because he who kills will be condemned by man. But I say to you, do not get angry, because a higher judgment is above you, and takes into account immaterial actions. Who insults his brother will be condemned by the Sanhedrin. But who treats him as a madman, and consequently has harmed him, will be condemned by God. It is useless to make offers at the altar, unless you, for the sake of God, first sacrifice your ill feelings in your hearts, and you fulfill the most holy rite of forgiveness. Therefore, when you are about to make an offering to God, and you remember that you have wronged your brother, and you bear him a grudge because of a fault of his, leave your offer before the altar. Make first the sacrifice of your self-esteem by becoming reconciled to your brother. Then come to the altar, and only then your sacrifice will be holy. Full agreement is always the best business. The judgment of man is precarious, and who stubbornly challenges it may lose the cause and have to pay the opponent down to the last coin or languish in jail. In everything, turn your eyes to God. Ask yourselves, am I entitled to do what God does not do to me? Because God is not so stubborn and implacable as you are. Woe to you if he were. No one would be saved. Let that consideration induce you to mild, humble, pitiful feeling. And then you will certainly receive a reward from God, both here and in the next world. Here, in front of me, there is also one who hates me and dare not say to me, cure me, because he knows that I am aware of his thoughts. But I say, let it be done as you wish. And as the scales fall from your eyes, so may ill feelings and darkness fall from your heart. You may all go with my peace. I will speak to you again tomorrow. The crowds disperse slowly, waiting perhaps for the cry of a miracle, which, however, is not heard. Also the apostles and the first disciples who remain on the mountain ask, who was it? Has he not been cured? And they insist with the Master, who is standing with folded arms, watching the crowd descending the mountain. Jesus at first does not reply. He then says, his eyes are cured, but his soul is not. It cannot be cured, because it is full of hatred. But who is it? That Roman, perhaps? No, a poor wretch. Why did you cure him then? Asks Peter. Should I strike by lightning all the people like him? Lord, I know that you do not want me to say yes, and so I will not say it. But that is what I think, and it is the same. It is the same, Simon of Jonah. You should know, then. Oh, how many hearts covered with scales of hatred there are around me. Come, let us go up there, to the top, to look from the height at our beautiful Sea of Galilee. Only you and I.